Hey guys, I got a few requests to do a video dealing with depression and anxiety and things of this nature. This is something that I've certainly dealt with my whole life. I was diagnosed with and all this as a young kid and have gone through the whole rigmarole, medication and all that kind of stuff in my very young years. I haven't touched any of that shit since I was a teenager and in my early teens. I think that the first thing we can do is identify two different kinds of depression. One is sort of external forces creating situations that put you into a rut or have you feeling down or melancholy or what people refer to as like being in a funk. That's a super manageable type, and we'll talk about that first. The second type is what they call chronic depression, clinical depression, which is sort of, you really can't know what it feels like until you've been eaten alive by it. It's chemical, and it's not something that you are being affected by due to circumstance. It sort of feels causeless, and this is one of the things that makes it most difficult to sort out. So before we go into this, I'll say, number one, I am not a doctor. Number two, I would never advise you to do anything illegal. So anything we talk about is like hypothetical. But what I can say is that I'm somebody who struggled with it and who has managed to maintain and, in my opinion, overcome it through using specific mental processes and using chemical processes. So the first kind of being in a funk or a melancholy or whatever, being in a rut, losing inspiration to train, that's one of those suck it up buttercup kind of situations. There are always going to be things in your life that are going to derail your training, whether that's injuries, breakups with your girlfriend, any of that kind of stuff that can come in and sort of shake things up and cause this general malaise to happen. You just need to get through that shit, and there's no other way to really say it. You have to harden the fuck up and realize that everybody deals with this kind of bullshit, and they deal with it regularly, and the way to deal with that is to wake your ass up, pour yourself some coffee, take a cold shower, hit the fucking gym, go hang out with your buds. None of them want you to like slip into this, this weak process, and so you just have to deal with it and suck it up. The second kind, though, this chronic or clinical depression, is a little bit trickier to deal with, and I think that the best ways to deal with it are, number one, we have to start to deconstruct and figure out what our root causes are. If it's chemical, that's fine, but there are still going to be things that trigger your depression to come on much harder. For me personally, and this is all I can really speak from, is me and the people that I've discussed and that I've helped with this in the past, oftentimes it came from toxic behaviors, obsessive negative thinking, and wallowing in these patterns. So the way to combat that, and I guess what I mean by that is sort of, I used to journal a lot when I was a kid, and I would anchor myself to this concept of depression by accepting it as a part of my persona. And we've talked before in some of these videos about how important the power of words and labels are. When we say, I struggle with depression, I am an alcoholic, I am this, I am that, we're speaking it into existence and we're anchoring ourselves to that as a concept. We need to stop saying that. We need to stop saying, I am this, I am that, when we're talking about weak things. And we need to interrupt that process by saying, I am someone who is overcoming depression or whatever. Even if this is something that you're only saying to yourself when you wake up, it's very important not to get stuck in this labeling, this self-negative labeling. Journaling and stuff like that can be very bad for this too, because oftentimes I find that people write most when they are at their worst. So for me, like when I'm writing music, or if I was writing, it would always be when I was dealing with those kind of feelings and I wanted to get it out some way, and instead of really getting it out, it kind of rooted me in it. So I think that writing, dwelling, talking, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I believe therapy and all these things is generally a negative process because it's anchoring you to this root cause that's accepting it as part of your persona. Secondly, being sedentary. Being depressed leads you to wanting to be sedentary, and being sedentary leads you to being more depressed. You have to interrupt it through sheer force of will. So what you have to do is say, I feel like shit, and no matter how much it feels like you're under that rock of just bleak horizon, you have to get up and you have to go run. You have to do extreme exercise. Go run, go lift heavy, go hike. Because it interrupts that sedentary malaise. And chemically, it begins to release stuff that makes you feel better, increases your sense of well-being. Third is more time in nature. Going outdoors, being outside, getting in water, camping out in the forest. These were things that I didn't really understand as a really young kid until I tried to chemically attack this problem. More specifically, my brother forced me to chemically attack this problem, and I thank him every day for that. Again, I don't recommend anyone do anything illegal, but I believe personally, and from what I've seen with many, many other people struggling with chronic depression, one large dose of psilocybin mushrooms, I have watched it rewire circuitry. There's a lot of studies out there on this that I recommend that you start looking at for yourself if that's a road you would consider. It has been proven that people who have dosed with psilocin, the active chemical, there is different wiring between their cortical regions than people who never have. There are some people who believe that what this means is that the brain has been short-circuited to avoid certain negative patterns of thinking. All I can tell you is that it was probably the single most important experience of my life up until that point, and it completely changed my life. And after I did it, I won't even try to get into describing the experience, but after I did it one time, it was just no longer an issue. I was not the same human being that I was before. I was more capable, positive, certainly in touch, more in touch with the natural world, more in touch with myself. I was positive. A lot of barriers fell out of my way, and a lot of roads were connected that were not connected before, is all I can say. There are other people who believe that microdosing with this can be effective as well. I'm against the idea of doing anything, taking anything on a habitual level. I'm pretty firmly anti-drug, but I am not anti-spirit plant. So what I mean is, I think that lab-created chemicals are often more harmful than ones that are already there and already exist in nature and have been proven many, many times to have a positive one-time effect. So to sort of like wrap everything together, try to find your root issues, try to find what's leading you into this stuff, and interrupt those negative patterns of thinking. Stop journaling about it. Stop using self-identifying terminology and saying like, I am chronically depressed. Just stop it. Lift weights, run, make time to be in nature, and really start doing your research on psilocin as a potential solution if you are dealing with crippling chronic anxiety. I know that I was, and I know that fixed it, and I know it's fixed a lot of other people out there. The other thing that you can do is stay positive. If you want to reach out, I will usually make time for people who reach out on that kind of stuff. And if you have any ideas for future videos, stuff that you'd like to see, or if you want me to talk about something a little bit more in depth that we talked about with this one, drop me a line. That's what I'm here for. Thanks.